So as we all know, the economy in my industry is so bad that I've given up chasing a normal job to make my dream game a hand-drawn fantasy political drama called All the Promise Burned. It's kind of like a JRPG if JRPGs didn't have combat, or like if Game of Thrones were made with female gaze and female gaze. The problem is that my game is wildly unmarketable. I'm honestly kind of working against the grain to make it happen at all. So, my name is Amiguri. I am a independent game developer and certified trash panda. I make scrappy cringe projects that don't grow anywhere and fizzle out when you put them on your tongue. But I've been working on the story and world for Yssaia since 2018, and I'm honestly obsessed with my protagonist Arliser and like the way that she grapples with grief, you know? And I love my Machiavellian villains from my evil empire, and I love my demons and their unique view on debt and transactional relationships. And the world is just honestly one of the best things I've made in my entire life. Like the way the sunlight is limited in the north to create these really unique environmental challenges that the society is built to face, to the rich and varied foods that the cultures can fight about, to the like ways that the different factions grapple with the thematic elements of the story, namely, what does it mean to be a hero? So I just can't get myself to give up on this project, no matter how much it is not really going to fit with the current market. So we are going to do 3 things to try to make the game a little bit more marketable, aka actually good. Yeah, let's go ahead and try to twist it into shape today. So firstly, we got to give it an appealing art style that will convey the tone of the story. Secondly, we have to find a better way to add gameplay to the giant story that I wrote. And thirdly, we have to actually tell people about the game. Oh, well, I guess we're at least doing that much. Over the last couple of months here, pretty much the only thing I've been doing is art and YouTube. I wake up in the morning, I take a bath, I candlelight for the whimsy, because my water is free, and then I make something yummy with lots of protein and fiber to eat, and then I sit down at my computer and I draw or I work on YouTube videos. Last year around this time, I started out by messing out with different art styles. I wasn't going for just like whatever is prettiest or easiest. I also need my art to be accessible, because I know that my game is not going to have the time to put in a bunch of technically powered accessibility options, so it's much better for me to just try to design accessibility from the get-go. This, by the way, isn't just a like virtue signaling thing. I had people accusing me of being like virtue signaling or like appealing to like leftists or something, and let me tell you, I have a friend of the channel is legally blind, so, and like she really struggles with pixel art, and or at least to read pixel art or read certain fonts, and so making a readable art style that's also easy to draw is in fact just a business choice, because I want to enable as many players as possible to play my game. And also, I personally know one of these players, so like it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I make a game that my friend can't play? It doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? Like, if you were making something, wouldn't you want your friends to play it? I'm just saying. This is one of the reasons I made the protagonist double the size of the base squares in RPG Maker, and the reason why I'm drawing all the maps by hand as opposed to doing pixel art. Digitally drawing, yes, but by hand nonetheless. But while in some of my maps you can see where I was adding too much detail and it made the maps unreadable, you can see in other cases where just sticking to the most critical parts of the map makes the world feel sterile and unlived in. I especially have trouble with people thinking that this city inspired by Santorini in Greece is actually a snowy scene. And so every single map in this area, I've had to run by a bunch of different Discords to make sure that they know that this is actually a tropical area, or is like very stone oriented and is hot and is not snowy. I think the sound design will do a lot to sell the fact that it's not snow, but it's not snow. I think though, for real, that one of my biggest appeals of this project is the world building. Like, I want people to be able to go in and look around and go, oh my gosh, I can physically see that the food in the south is more abundant than it is in the north, and so it makes it really obvious why they were more successful during the war. I want this to be like the background noise to this otherwise really character-driven story. Oh, I want people to be able to read the same myths from two different cultures and then have the translations of them be slightly different and realize how the cultural values of these two cultures are coloring the myths that the players are reading. The backgrounds also have to be rich because I'm not drawing separate visual novel backgrounds for all the cutscenes, so like they have to be like interesting so that the player can look at them for all however many like tens of hours that they're staring at them and the characters talking over them. At the very least, they have to be passively appealing. Since I first started showing people the art, I have gotten multiple comments that say that the art style is charming and good. So while I know I'm trash compared to like an actual traditionally trained artist, I feel like I've got something that is at least passively appealing. So, and I hope that you agree, but if you don't, please like complain about it in the comments, or don't, because I don't know how much I can change it now, but I can maybe change it going forward. I don't know. By the way, I'm always open to critique and feedback. I'm of the belief that if I don't like your feedback, I will just ignore you. I don't care if you want to tell me that you think everything I'm doing is bad, or if you want to give like a critical rundown as to why something I'm doing is bad. I think that's super helpful, so thank you in advance, actually. Here's the reality though, people don't buy games just for the art style. They maybe look at them on social media for this art style, but they do not buy games for the art style. They buy them for their gameplay. Now, you might be like, Amiguri, aren't you a game designer? Why did you make a game story without knowing its gameplay first? How is this your dream game if you didn't come up with the game part? And so I'm gonna be so real with you for a second. It's not my dream game. In fact, Indie Game Clinic talks about how he hates this term because it's not true, and in reality, I probably don't have a dream game, or if I do, I have multiple dream games. So you might be like, well, why did you call this video then this? Honestly, it's just for the YouTube views, so I'm sorry, I lied. But it got you to click on the video, didn't it? And also, let's be real, this is solving my issue number 3 with I need to tell people about the game, so I appreciate you for bearing with me. This is my passion project, it's just not. I think dream game is a misleading title. It's a dream game, it works. But this game admittedly did not start as a game at all. It started as a story I was telling my friends over email, an epistolary novel, if you will, and each email was like its own chapter. So I am honestly crowbarring in the gameplay now, and that's always a bad story. As a narrative designer, a trained narrative designer, I know. Sometimes you just do things that are bad choices because you're too lazy to make the good choices, and then it comes to bite you later, and you suffer. So I initially started wondering if I shouldn't just make it a JRPG anyway and put in the combat, because the story is very anime inspired, very JRPG influenced. The issue with this is that the protagonists lose a ton of fights, and I think winning a bunch of fights in the gameplay but losing them in the narrative is one of the most annoying things a JRPG can do. And the story is also often about the limitations of violence as a tool and its uses, and the way that it takes a mental toll on the people who use violence as a tool. So it seems like it would be really a bad idea to just like crowbar in combat gameplay and then have the players lose all the time in the cutscenes. So I actually considered making it a kinetic visual novel for a bit, which if you don't know, that's a novel with visuals that you don't make choices in. It's just you just read. The problem is that, let me tell you, the goal of making this into a game instead of an email chain was to make it more marketable, and kinetic visual novels are not very marketable. So if you've ever heard of House of Fata Morgana or Higurashi When They Cry, those are some of the most successful kinetic novels ever. Higurashi When They Cry got made into an anime. That's how well it did. And let me tell you, neither of them grossed $1 million on Steam. So my next idea was then to try to make it like a JRPG, but just without the combat. And this is sort of where I've settled on for the last year or so here. You'd walk around, you'd talk to people, and you'd have some light puzzling elements or some secret side quests. So just like imagine it's like Genshin Impact, but without the combat. You're still walking around at different locations, you're still talking to people, you're still doing the sliding block puzzles, spinning things puzzles. Sometimes you gotta read like 3 documents and be like, oh, I came up with a revelation. Or, like Final Fantasy, you still got the side quests, you still gotta collect things, just no combat. And that's, like I said, where I've been sitting for the last year or so. But today, we're trying a new solution. I want to make it a knowledge-based RPG. So what does this mean? A knowledge-based RPG means that you gain knowledge levels as you read things or as you talk to people, and then you choose how you want to use this knowledge to impact the world around you and to advance the story. So, like, for example, at the beginning of the game, Arlister finds this mysterious coffin in the ruins, and she could use her knowledge of nature to, for example, know what kind of stone the coffin is made out of and how hard it would be to break the stone. Or she could use her knowledge of society to know that the ruins are old Thulian ruins. Or she could use her knowledge of writing to know that the once a future king was buried in a stone coffin in old Thulian ruins, like her sort of like literary arts knowledge. And then she could use her knowledge of the world's magic, called Ys, to know how to open the coffin magically. And even though this wouldn't necessarily lead to dramatically different story outcomes, but you could think about it sort of like how in Persona 5's true ending doesn't really change depending on what personas you use. You just sort of, that's just you expressing yourself through the combat. And so the players would get to express themselves differently through the different abilities, but it wouldn't be so, have these like really wide-reaching impacts on like a systemically branching narrative. Don't worry, maybe my next game can be a systemically branching narrative, so that it's actually in my specialty wheelhouse. So I was thinking we'd maybe call each of the knowledge types philosophies, since I once described this world in a summary as an abyssal machine built both by kings and philosophies, meaning both literal machines and philosophical machines like the cogs of society, you know. So we would have natural philosophy to talk about the structure of the world, rocks, plants, and creatures. You'd have societal philosophy, which is factions and human cultures, and also food, because food geopolitics is like one of my favorite things to discuss. Talk to me about food geopolitics in the comments below. And epistolary philosophy, which is maybe like a bad name for it, but I really like the term epistolary, and it ends with an E like all the other ones. And this would be all writing and all art, even though I think epistles is technically letters only, and possibly newspaper clippings. I'm not sure, I don't remember. Sorry, I don't know the terms, I don't know the exact definitions of my own fancy terms. I only know the vibes, because I read things and don't know what they mean. And then lastly, we'd have Yssaia philosophy, which is unique to Yssaia, and it'd be about the magic and the religion, because Ys is what they call the magic, but also the religions are built around the magic, so, you know. And then, as per in a normal JRPG, where you can only get through certain fights once you reach a certain level, or maybe in All the Promised Burn, you can only make it through certain conversations or get to certain areas if you have a high enough knowledge in certain philosophies. I'd also want to keep some puzzles locked behind actual knowledge that you hold in your brain in real life, but that would all be optional stuff, because I know that that's a little harder, and also those kinds of puzzles are really hard to design, so I definitely couldn't like make a whole world full of those. But now I know that's all fine and good to describe, but now we have to actually build it. I think my worry currently is playing this game isn't going to be fun, but discovering the story/world could be. I just haven't experienced the story yet, of course, so I can't speak on that. But I want to know that the player isn't going to be like, can I just get to the story now, please? Like, getting stuck in the investigation parts of Ace Attorney where I kept going back to old locations and like, fucking let's go through all the inspection dialogue again, try and find my needle. It's points like that where I'm just like, fuck, maybe this would just be better if this was a more straightforward visual novel. So, it's not quite there. The issue is that people didn't really know what to do. They felt too directionless. So I need to onboard people better for the full game. However, I definitely think it's in a better place than it was before. Listen, I love visual novels. I think they're great. And I love the story parts of story games most of all. But I do think that my game will do so much better if it's an actual RPG. Even if it's just an RPG that doesn't have combat. Like Disco Elysium is apparently an RPG that doesn't have combat, which is just another reason I have to hurry up and play Disco Elysium, oh my god. So, in order to make sure this new system actually has legs, and not just the theoretical legs that I kind of found from this playtest, I did the one thing I said I wouldn't do. I built the start of the game. The reason behind this, I need to see if I can teach this system to players, to show them what's fun about it. You can't really properly test your onboarding, however, unless you also onboard everything else. So, beginning of the game it is. In order to implement the start of the game, I have to edit the script for it. So, I put on a pot of tea and got back into the writing. I really didn't want to do the intro. Here is my plan. I really wanted to do this middle and then implement from the middle to the end and then go back to the beginning with my newfound knowledge. This way, as I implemented stuff, I would also get better and get more streamlined and so on and so forth. And this way I wouldn't have to go back and edit a bunch of stuff, at least as much as possible anyway. Just knowing that I only have a limited amount of time to get this game done, it's like I want it to be as good as possible, as efficiently as possible. However, I'm probably going to need to remake the opening of my game later, but at the very least, I can test the gameplay like this, and the vibes, and so on and so forth. The wrench in this plan is I kind of move across the country real quick for my fiance's work, and let me tell you, it is very disruptive to game deving to have to move. How dare my true love get in the way of my dream game? Okay, hang on, so let me just move really fast. Wow, that was stressful. I had to clean the entire house by myself and figure out insurance, and I had to rent a truck and be like a real adult. It was so scary. Okay, anyway. So, I started by learning how to do cutscenes, and more importantly, I started learning the elements I can make using cutscenes, like jumps to indicate talking, or emotes over the head for various emotions, sound effects for different motions, how many extra sprites do I need, how do I want to break up my copious amounts of text, how should I integrate my mini-games. I was initially thinking I should do a fishing-like minigame, but then I decided I really didn't want it to be skill-based, because I wanted it to simulate more what it felt like you were doing, kind of like the pizza-eating minigame from Night in the Woods, where you're trying to eat pizza and your friends keep taking the slice right before you can get to it. Right now, I'm only using it for magic spells, but I do eventually want a mini-game for eating and for the fights, and maybe for a couple of the other important events in the story. This may sound strange, but I don't really want this game to be too heavily skill-based. I want it to be I want the IRL players to not have to be really good at playing this. I do want there to be maybe some secret or optional quests that require you to really think about the world, but I'm really hopeful that the story is going to carry a majority of the game, and that the more gameplay elements feel more like simulation-y and kinetically interesting. Next, I started working for the NPC art for all of Saganheim. I'm actually trying to make literally all of them unique for all of my parts. However, to keep my scope down, I'm going to have my NPCs only have 2 directions for the non-playable characters, and only important NPCs and playable characters are going to have 4 directions they can face. But this might seem like it's going to give away every, non-important character and every important character. So ninjas in theater, I'm gonna have at least one 2D NPC step forward at some point in the story and turn into a 4-directional character once they get close enough and close enough emotionally to the protagonist. Isn't that kind of cool? Once they were placed, especially the ones blocking the path, I designed some puzzles and implemented it, and it was definitely not during times when I was supposed to be packing or cleaning. I only managed to get in the first story chapter and the first couple of rooms, but when I was playtesting it the second time, I got a lot more comments on the story and on the inelegance of the tutorialization. They also wanted the minigame to be a lot more interactive than just spamming a button, so I think I'm gonna maybe go to something a little bit more, maybe not quite a quick time event, but something directional, where it's they want you to push things in certain directions, or a visual puzzle of some kind. But you know what I didn't hear on this round of playtesting? I didn't hear confusion on how to make the philosophies go higher, or what they're going to be used for throughout the game. So that means that my players understand my core gameplay loop, and that is the most important part. Everything else can be smoothed out, but if they understand what they're doing, basically everything else can come together around it. And with this, I was content that I had a actual solid foundation to work with. It's not perfect, but perfection is a problem for future Mai, which means that you have to support future Amiguri in all her endeavors. Please, wishlist all the promised burn. For each wishlist that I receive before launch day, I'm going to add a tooth to the Divine Flesh Island, somewhere that teeth don't belong. I mean, just kidding. I definitely don't have body horror in my cozy political fantasy drama. That'd be great.